All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive behavioral shift that has impacted, well, pretty much all of us. And right out of the gate, I want to set a tone here that is direct but entirely compassionate. We're going to take a really close look at our relationship with our screens, and specifically how that relationship fundamentally changed after the year 2020.
Listen, the absolute most crucial point I want to make today is this. Your screen time is not a personal moral failing. It is not a lack of willpower. If you constantly feel like you just can't put your phone down, you have to understand that this is the result of a highly engineered system that is methodically designed to capture and keep your attention. You aren't weak. You're just playing a game where the rules were written by people who literally study addiction for a living.
To really ground this reality, let's look at the actual data. 4.8. That is the staggering number of hours the average adult is now spending on their screen every single day. I mean, think about that for a second. That's roughly 1/3 of our waking lives spent staring at a piece of glowing glass. Time we used to spend, actually looking at the world around us.
And the sheer pervasiveness of this is just wild. We aren't just looking at our phones anymore. We're compulsively interacting with them. Heavy users are touching, tapping, and swiping their screens over 5,400 times every single day. It's basically become a reflex, right? Much like breathing or blinking. But how in the world did it get this extreme?
Well, when we compare our pre-COVID tech habits to today, the timeline is super revealing. The COVID lockdowns didn't invent screen addiction, but man, they handed tech companies billions of captive, bored, and highly anxious users. We were trapped inside, and these apps used that unprecedented opportunity to completely turbocharge our dependency on them.
Let's break down that post-COVID recalibration. Isolation literally rewired our habits. It trained our brains to reach for a screen at the very first whisper of anxiety or loneliness. And while we were locked down, the tech companies were busy. They refined their algorithms with billions of data points to create feeds that are significantly harder to put down. And the really insidious side effect of all this? After years of this hyper-stimulation, regular, everyday real life, like a quiet dinner or a walk outside, suddenly feels completely dull by comparison.
Which brings us to Section 1, the dopamine trap. Let's pull back the curtain on the actual behavioral science behind the screen and expose the invisible villain in our pockets.
This isn't just a bad habit you stumbled into. It's a meticulously engineered cycle known as the dopamine loop. Here's how it works. It starts with a trigger, usually something slightly uncomfortable like boredom or stress. That trigger prompts a behavior. You pull out your phone and you scroll. Instantly, your brain gets a dopamine hit from a funny video or a text. And finally, reinforcement. Your brain learns a super powerful lesson. Phone equals relief, and the loop just repeats, getting stronger every single time.
And tech companies absolutely supercharge this loop using engineered hooks. One of the most powerful is the variable reward, which acts exactly like a slot machine in Vegas. You swipe down to refresh, and you never really know if you're going to get something amazing or nothing at all. That unpredictability is highly addictive. Combine that with delayed social validation notifications to spike your dopamine. Infinite scrolling so your brain literally never gets a stopping cue, and the fact that you quickly build a tolerance, well, it means the more you consume, the more you need just to feel normal.
Moving on to Section 2, a multi-generational crisis. Let's pivot and see how this carefully crafted addiction impacts different age groups. Because the truth is, this crisis doesn't discriminate at all. It just shows up a little differently depending on what stage of life you're in.
Starting with kids and teens. For a developing brain, these algorithmic feeds are an absolute high-risk scenario. Post-COVID, we've actually seen teen screen time double. What this translates to in the real world is honestly terrifying. We're seeing violently rising rates of anxiety and depression, dramatically shortened attention spans, sharp academic declines, and entire identities completely tied up in the fear of missing out.
But hey, us adults are definitely far from immune. For us, a quick 5-minute scroll on the couch easily morphs into a 90-minute time warp. This constant state of distraction completely erodes our ability to do deep, focused work. It blurs the boundaries between our professional and personal lives, and it creates real, palpable tension with our partners and families when we are physically present but mentally miles and miles away.
And tragically, we're seeing a really heartbreaking pattern with older adults too. Many seniors came online seeking connection with their families. But the algorithms quickly figured out that outrage and fear actually keep people clicking much longer than photos of the grandkids. So the feeds serve them chronic outrage loops, feeding them misinformation that ultimately just deepens their sense of isolation and replaces their active hobbies with anxious, passive consumption.
Recognizing the problem is always the very first step to fixing it, right?
So I want you to take a beat and ask yourself, without any shame, zero judgment here, do any of these everyday warning signs ring true for you?
Maybe your thumb is instinctively scrolling before your eyes are even fully open in the morning. Or maybe you feel this low, vibrating hum of unease when you realize your phone is in another room. Perhaps you constantly hit ignore on those app limits you optimistically set for yourself, or you find yourself coming up for air after a 45-minute social media time warp feeling completely drained. If you're nodding your head right now, trust me, you are in the vast majority.
All right, Section 3, Reclaiming Your Attention. Now that we see the trap clearly, and we understand exactly how the mechanism works, let's pivot sharply to some practical, actionable hope. Because the good news? This is entirely changeable.
You absolutely do not need to quit cold turkey. Instead, we just need to build a smarter relationship with your device. You can start today by simply creating phone-free zones. The bedroom and the very first hour of your morning are the absolute highest leverage places to start. Also, go into your settings today and turn off all non-essential notifications. Remember, you should dictate when you look at your phone. Your phone shouldn't dictate when it looks at you.
For families, this requires a team effort, and it absolutely starts with parents modeling the behavior first, because kids spot hypocrisy in a second. Try moving all device chargers outside the bedroom. Honestly, it's the single best thing you can do for your teenager's sleep. And maybe even implement a phone basket rule at the front door, where everyone just drops their device when they get home to ensure actual, real, face-to-face connection.
Now, if you're wondering if these small shifts actually work, real change is absolutely possible. Just look at 16-year-old Jamie. She realized she was spending over 6 hours a day on TikTok. By just implementing some basic limits, she noted that she started sleeping properly for the first time in 2 years, and her grades naturally jumped from C's to B's.
Or take Marcus, a 38-year-old software manager. He had a massive wake-up call when his wife told him she felt like she was constantly competing with a piece of glass for his attention. He cut his social media usage by 70% and not only saved his relationship, but reclaimed a level of mental clarity he thought he had lost forever.
And then there's 68-year-old Dorothy. She took a step back from those algorithmically generated outrage loops on Facebook. By reclaiming that time and mental energy, she rejoined our local book club, she started calling her grandkids on the phone instead of just passively liking their photos, and reported that she finally felt like herself again. As we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Your attention is truly one of the most valuable, finite resources you possess. The biggest tech companies in the world are spending billions of dollars every single year to aggressively capture it. So what small step will you take today to disrupt their algorithm, reclaim your focus, and take your life back?